Well, welcome to Nick's Right Podcast, where Nick is always right. Do you want a cue for this one, or do you want me to just do it the regular way?
Cue me.
Okay. Welcome to Nick's Right. Sorry. Welcome to Nick's Right Podcast, where Nick is always right. Oh, millennial.
Gen X.
That was good. That was good.
Eh?
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, good timing.
Good.
You know, good execution, good delivery.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You should add something else onto it, like you've been doing, like big hair, Back to the Future. No. Don't sing, Nick. No. Don't sing. Don't sing. Just.
We got the Imperial March, man.
I know, but
Gen
don't
X
sing.
brought us the Imperial March.
Just don't sing.
Yeah. Well, be more specific with your instruction then.
Pacific or specific?
Specific.
Okay.
Pacific's an ocean, dude.
That's very true. I get
Go
very
on with
upset with people.
the opening. I want to get on with.
We have a great guest.
with the episode.
Great guest. We did some soft diving research. Oh, now that camera's stuck on Nick. Nick, you like that?
Not at all, sir.
Yeah, I didn't think you would. We did some soft research on our guest today, so I'm excited to have him on for more reasons than one. But we're going to pray, get to our sponsors, and then get into it. That way we can get as much information out of our guests as possible. Yeah? Lord Jesus, thank you for the day. Thank you for the ability to come here and speak freely. We live in a free country. Thank you for the responsibility that you give us to have this freedom. I ask that we would be good stewards of that, and that we would always praise your name, that what we do and say would honor and glorify you. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Patriot Mobile. PatriotMobile.com/NRP. PatriotMobile.com with the code NRP for a free month. Live Audio. You see the premium headphones Nick and I are wearing. He's actually wearing his headphones correctly. That is awesome, Nick. Live Audio.
How do you
LI
wear headphones incorrect?
Oh, go back a few episodes. You'll see how Nick wore his headphones incorrectly. LIVVaudio.com with the code NRP. Get a 15% discount. Oh, gosh. I can't believe I did that. Nick's Right Podcast merch. We got the graphic novel out. That's going to be for $14.99 on Nick's Right Podcast merch. We also have the hat that I'm wearing where it says Make Jesus First Again. Nick forgot his hat that says Deus Vult. Shame on you.
I know.
And we have an assortment of other merchandise.
The top of my head feels naked. I don't like it.
Go to
It's my fault.
Nick's Right Podcast on Substack. Sign up for our free newsletter so you can always be in the know. If you want to become a paid subscriber, you will get first access to all of our upcoming projects and episodes. Jace Yarbrough. What's up, man?
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, is his mic on? Nope. Do it again.
Nick, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to be here with y'all.
There you go.
Hey, there he is.
Hey. That's what you sound like. Cool. All right.
Sure.
Jace, where are you from, brother?
I was raised in a little town in West Texas, just outside Abilene. Tuscola, America.
Tuscola.
Yeah, population 714.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, we.
Okay. You sound like
we're
you
big
are
time.
born and bred Texas.
7 generations my family's been here.
Okay.
Proud to be from Texas. This is where the Lord's planted us, so this is where we're growing.
Love it, man.
Love
well,
it.
I did a little bit of research and found out that you are a graduate of UT Austin.
I am.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Well, don't hold it against me. I didn't fit in, as they say, right?
Well, I'm a Sooner fan, so I have to say that by nature.
Oh, a Sooner fan. Well, then I retract that statement. And,
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Well, you know what? You guys have the bragging rights for at least 1 year. So we'll see what goes on this year. I really don't have any confidence that we'll do any better than last year. So you might have to get two of them under your belt.
I think we're looking pretty good for that Red River shootout.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I still don't understand what was going through their minds to put John Mateer in after that injury, because he had a broken thumb on his throwing hand. Like,
Well, I mean, nobody pays me to coach football, but
but I'm going to get my 2 cents
kind of
anyway.
an important digit in the scheme of things, I would think. So
Yes, I agree.
Well, they didn't have any faith in their other quarterback. Who was their other quarterback? What's
No,
his
I
name?
did have a lot of faith in
I know
Michael
you
Hawkins.
did, but no one else did.
I think we thought that John Mateer could actually push through it, but I think it was more of a mental thing. Like, I do think he had the health here. I think he was just so afraid of breaking it again.
It's not going to be any
So he
different
threw
this
three
year.
interceptions that game. It was bad. Anyway, we're not here to talk football, even though we could probably talk about football all night. You were running for the 32nd District of Texas.
that is correct. Congressional District, 32nd Congressional District.
What all does that cover? I know it's local.
Yeah.
It's Dallas County.
Yep. I've got North Dallas County. I got some of Collin, and then we go east. So I got all of Rockwall, good portion of Hunt, and then keep going. So Rains, Wood, Camp, Upshur counties. We're one county shy of the Louisiana border out east.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Man,
Yep.
That's crazy.
I did
That's
not
nice.
know that.
Yeah.
All that includes Plano, right?
I don't have any of Plano proper, actually. I do have some of Collin County, Southern Collin County, but none of Plano, the city itself.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
We were
Close to
really
a lot
hoping
of-
you did.
Close to
Yeah.
a lot of stuff is going on in Plano, obviously adjacent to
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
none of Plano proper, formerly in the new 32nd.
Yeah, man. So you're very aware of what's going on in Texas when it comes to the Islamification of Texas, and
I am, yes. So Epic Mosque is 200 yards from one of my district lines. One of my good buddies, Justin Butterfields, represented the street preachers that were sued by that mosque. I don't know if y'all followed that state
No.
court.
What
oh
happened?
yeah.
What
I've
happened?
heard about it. I think I'm friends with that one of those street preachers.
Yeah.
So the mosque was suing Christian street preachers?
That's correct, yeah. And asked for an injunction from the state court saying that these preachers couldn't pass out literature that was, quote, offensive to the Islamic faith within 500 yards of the mosque.
Wow.
Under what was that statute? Law? Under
I mean, I want it, and I'm a minority basically. And anyway, the case was ultimately thrown out. Thankfully, that's the right
Good.
call, but not before the judge issued a temporary injunction, basically granting them what they wanted. Right.
Wow.
So judges in Texas are elected. Our state court judges are elected. So any place you're seeing the politicals start to bend the knee basically to the radical Sharia caucus.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see state court judges probably follow along because same people elect both of them.
Well, it starts with the well, I don't know if it starts with this or not, but it's sort of triggered from the imams and the leaders, the religious leaders of Islam, being brazen enough to even cite that, or to even
Yeah.
what would the proper wording be to
File a lawsuit.
File a lawsuit,
basically,
yeah.
like a anti-free speech lawsuit, anti-religious liberty lawsuit.
really?
Yeah.
And it's just because they didn't want it within 500 yards
Yeah.
of the mosque.
Yeah. These guys were on public sidewalks.
That's thousands of feet.
I'm about to say, I remember that story because actually the
1,500
guy
feet.
that was one of them, I think he texted me right before this because he said he was in town when I've been trying to get him on the podcast. And I remember seeing that video, like he was on a public sidewalk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yet-
Yeah.
So I've been trying to tell our followers or just people in the DFW who are really just seeing the takeover of DFW when it comes to Islam.
Yes.
And I encourage them, like, let's get some kind of organizing together to where we get big groups to go surround a mosque on public property
Mhm.
and pray over it.
Mhm.
So you're telling me that those whole groups could be potentially sued?
Well, you can file a lawsuit for anything,
Oh, wow.
and so I mean that's what the mosque did, and had a brief period of success there for a time.
Mhm.
Again, ultimately that case was thrown out, settled the right way. But yeah, I mean, and I think as these groups, I mean, this is the larger issue. Obviously, is immigration, right?
Yeah.
So tons of minority groups come in here, and scale matters when you're
Yeah.
talking about cultural formation and transformation and degeneration in some ways. And that's what's happening to us. And it's in large part a result of the government's doing, incentivizing, not only permitting, but affirmatively incentivizing the sort of internal invasion of our country through quote unquote legal means.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, millions of them are here illegally, but even the ones that are here legally, right? I hold our government responsible for bringing into particularly Texas, Collin County, especially,
You're talking
huge
about the
numbers.
H-1B
huge,
stuff.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Huge numbers of folks who don't have our formation, don't share our Christian values or worldview. And if they came in small numbers, it would be one thing. But when they come in the kind of numbers that our government has incentivized, we got a real problem on our hands.
So you talk about the government being taking responsibility for this. You're running for the 32nd district in Texas, which would make you a government official.
Yes.
Which do you have a plan? What's your
Well, yeah, so I think we need an immigration system that fundamentally serves the interests of the American people, and the goal of it should be to preserve the American way of life, right? And so repealing Hart-Celler, which is a 1965 Immigration Reform Act that basically opened the door to the mass immigration that we've seen from all parts of the world, right? And so even when we're talking about H-1B visas, the point of any H-1B visa worker coming here, in my opinion, should be to make the American worker more productive. You have to
Agreed.
prove to us that you are going to make our people more productive and improve their lives and their wages. You're going to improve the quality and decrease the cost of goods and services that they enjoy. That should be the standard. Right now, we don't have any standard, right? I mean, under Joe Biden, not only did we not have a standard, we weren't even attempting to apply it. We were affirmatively going around our own immigration laws in order to bring millions of people here illegally. And so, I mean, that's at a very high level, that's it. And I think it begins with repealing Hart-Celler.
Is that the H-1B visa program that's in place right now?
No, Hart-Celler is a 1965 immigration law. H-1B visa, that program has a little bit different history. It really got kicked up kind of in the late 80s, early 90s.
That's what I was thinking.
And a lot of that was a result of very powerful kind of business lobbies who made the case, you probably have heard this, we don't have enough STEM workers. We don't have enough, folks in engineering to sustain our edge in the global economy when it comes to, bleeding edge technology and being the kind of innovators of the world. And so we need to bring all these foreigners in. And of course, now the H-1B visa program, I mean, I think the top 2 recipients were kind of middlemen, Indian IT companies who specialize not in providing a good or a service, but in the H-1B visa process itself and pairing these H-1B visa applicants with companies. And so, I mean, it's a system that's riddled with fraud, as we're coming to learn, and increasingly harrowing quantity. And so, I mean, there's from visa reform to the immigration system itself, obviously border security, deportations. I mean, there's a lot to be doing. And, in this administration, we're moving in the right direction. I give the president a lot of credit. Before he came down the golden escalator in 2015, right? If you were a Republican running for office, your line had to be illegal bad, legal good. But we don't actually mean the illegal bad part, right? The more we can get over here to produce cheaper workers, the better. And the president has absolutely flipped that on its head. If you're running as a Republican right now and you're not talking about repealing Hart-Celler, like, you're the one that's in the hot seat. Yeah. And that's the way it should be. So there are obviously things that folks around the country are concerned about, but there are things that we're seeing that are absolutely moving in the right direction. First time in a generation we've seen net migration out of the United States, right? A net negative migration. The number of student visas has gone down by something like 17%. Right?
Oh, that's a big chunk.
Yes, okay. 95% decrease in illegal border crossings, zero. That is zero gotaways during Trump's second term. I mean, all these things are moving in the right direction. We should continue that way. But it's a huge problem. It touches so much.
So let me ask you this. You've got ICE out there, and they're doing their thing, and they're doing it very well. It makes me, I wonder how much influence ICE would have, though, with the H-1B visa fraud. I know that they influence illegal aliens coming up from the southern border. And that's not necessarily Mexican, but I'm sure the majority is Mexican or Central American. But when it comes to H-1B visa, that seems like a completely different system of immigration, whether it's illegal alienship or not. How would we deal with that? Would ICE be involved, or is there another arm that we leverage, or how? I don't understand how we fix that problem.
So I don't want to pretend to be an expert on the H-1B visa system, but the fraud that I'm aware of does exist kind of outside of ICE's necessarily jurisdiction, right? So India, these Indian IT companies, biggest recipients of these H-1B visas, they will set up some kind of fake degree mill shop over there across the world, and then they'll get you sort of, you check all the boxes, you come over here, you displace an American worker, you work for 20-30% less because your employment and residence are tied together, right? So you lose your job as an H-1B visa worker, you have 60 days to find a new one or you're gone. So you become much more compliant, obviously. Now, they're here legally. The government has set up this structure, and so their presence in the country is not technically illegal, and so ICE wouldn't have jurisdiction to deport them, right? The problem is further upstream. It's with the people that are manufacturing these degrees. These folks are lying about it, right? So this becomes not just you've entered our country illegally in the sort of strict sense, but we're going to go after you for fraud that's, you might call it sort of the white-collar version, right? This isn't like a cartel shipping people who have don't even have the fig leaf of a pretense of being here legally.
Right. So I like your use of the word upstream. It's upstream from what ICE's jurisdiction would be. It's white collar.
Well, it was actually the Indian police that busted one of these organizations in India that was selling all of these fake credentials.
Really?
Yeah, they came in, and there was a whole story on it from a publication in India.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, but it was the Indian police that busted it. It wasn't us.
A lot of this is competence issues, right? I mean, one of the things that's frustrating to be an American in 2026 is everything just seems to be going to, it just going to crap. Like, why aren't we good at anything? Why is it that we are so beholden? Why can't we do anything with competence and kind of the sort of like
go to the left, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, we can talk about the effect of sort of woke DEI policies on competence within all of significant major U.S. corporations. Within the Democratic Party itself, I mean, it's touched so many things, but this is a big part of it. It's because the folks who are coming over here and taking jobs from Americans don't actually have the credentials and the training to do the thing that they're being hired to do, right? So
it's I just had this conversation today. I was talking to one of our buddies at the gym, tall guy, he's like 6'5", 6'6", and as much as he comes up to me at the gym and gives me like these little anecdotes, or he shows me these articles about the left that are just stupid. Like when I say stupid, I mean there was one article that had some kind of title to the nature of, if you work out, you're in danger of being a right-wing radical.
Sure.
Yeah. And I was like, and I had to make a video on that. Like it was just that absurd. So we were talking today, and I was like, "What do you do?" I don't even know. He's like, "Oh, I'm what kind of?" It was a junior high teacher.
Okay.
Yeah. And I immediately said, "I'm sorry for your loss." And he's like, "No, I get it." And then we got on the subject of this whole DEI thing and race, because I've got Muslims come, putting reviews on our page, and they are like bad. They were saying the only good conservative is a dead conservative. Like this is the Muslim retribution page that's saying this. And I left it up because I wanted to submit everything to the FBI. I'm like, here, take this and do something with it.
Yeah.
But then my friend made this good point. He's like, you do understand that there has to be some kind of subset in your DNA to be considered a race. And that if you take how we define race, you could be racist for being taller than somebody. And I was like, huh.
Yeah.
And so he basically broke it down to that race is a social construct. And then, of course, being racist is a social construct.
Yeah, well,
like,
it's ideology is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We're separated, if you will, by ideology. That doesn't mean we have to hate each other, right? It just means we have different ideologies. And because racism is such a toxic thing to talk about in the United States, or has become such, they don't call it ideology. They just call it race. Everything that's bad is now, boxed under the term race, racism.
Yeah. It's
have you been called racist before?
Yes, of course. If you can tell from my background, right? Yeah. But I think the correct response to the left, right, to that criticism is just that doesn't work anymore. There's a time when we would kowtow to that, but you recognize it for what it is. It's a new form of Marxism. I think that's the best way to think about it, right? And so the point of Marxism is you divide people into two classes. There's a good class, a bad class. You take stuff from the good class, from the bad class, and you give it to the good class. Now, in Marx's time, right, the division was owners of capital versus and the means of production versus the workers, right?
Yeah.
Now it's just, are you white? You're in the bad class. Everybody else is in the good class.
Yeah.
And some white females kind of get to exist in the sort of good class category as well.
As long as they're liberal.
Long as they're liberal. That's right. And so I think, and it's a silly ideology, right?
Yeah.
It has these just ridiculous consequences. You mentioned some of them, right? And I think actually some professors kind of showed the idiocy of the at least formal academic side of critical race theory that's been driving this, right? I recall, forgive me, I don't have the details, but they got a couple of papers published, and one of them was like the kind of like toxic masculinity that's evident in like dog humping and in like pet, it's sort of like pet training parks in like the Pacific Northwest or something.
My God.
Forgive me, but I mean,
so bad.
It's stupid.
It's
right?
stupid.
And that is the thing that I think ultimately, like, the most frustrating thing for average Americans, right? Who are good people, right? We as a people, we're good people. We want to be kind, generous. We're driven by Christian ethic. It gives us this ability to exist for the sake of others. And that's kind of in our DNA. It's a beautiful thing about who we are. And the left has taken that and they try to weaponize it against us.
Yeah.
And you get to the point where stupidity and idiocy is just so blatant. That's when the average American like stops. So we go, wait a minute. Hold on here, right?
Yeah.
And they start looking and digging, and that's when I think a lot of the sort of scales fall off of their eyes, and they get to see the left for what it is.
Yeah. I love what you said. I've often said to myself, stop being afraid of their buzzwords. We have to stop being. I mean, I call myself, Nick knows this. I call myself the self-proclaimed misogynist. You want to call me a misogynist? Go ahead. I mean, because
by their definition,
based on what their definition of misogyny is. how could you be a heterosexual man, black or white, and not be a misogynist?
Yeah.
If you believe in the nuclear family and the different roles that men and women play.
Sure.
You know, if you believe in what their definition of racism is, which is just pointing out objective statistics, then we're all racists. You know, so at some point, I think you're absolutely right. If you want to call me a racist, I mean, if that's your new word, go right ahead.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of takes the
It took
the wind out of their sails.
it took one of the worst things happening in our most recent history for us to really drive that into our brains of we've got to stop being afraid of their buzzwords. And that was whenever Charlie Kirk got assassinated.
Yeah.
So whenever that happened, Nick and I were like, not anymore.
Yeah.
Like we're just gonna speak, and we're gonna speak the truth, and we're not gonna be afraid of what their responses are gonna be.
100%.
So,
Yeah.
But yeah, what were you doing whenever that happened?
Let's see. I was sitting in my bedroom. I remember seeing the video for the first time. I think I was researching some stuff for a case my partner and I were working on, kind of the vaccine space, and a buddy just sent me a text message and said Kirk's in critical condition, and then I got on X, and there it was, somebody had immediately, like the follow-on text was they say he's in stable condition now, and I saw the video and I thought there's no way. I mean, that is just. I mean, I'm not an EMT. I don't have a lot of experience with that sort of thing, but it just seemed to me like he wasn't coming back from that one.
How long have you been practicing law?
I graduated from law school in 2018, so I've been doing it for I guess almost what is that? Almost 8 years.
Okay. All right. So, and what kind of law do you practice?
I started out in what we call big law, working for a firm downtown Dallas doing high-stakes intellectual property and commercial litigation.
Okay.
And then COVID hit, and left my employer over their policy. Went in with a buddy. Eventually, we do, I call it conservative lawfare.
Okay.
So for the non-lawyers in the room, I sue liberals and take their money. That's how I feed my family.
What is that called? Other than suing liberals and taking their money?
Yeah,
Conservative lawfare.
Yeah. Plaintiff side trial lawyer, but everything is sort of for the cause, right? So we're cause litigators, for profit. Trial lawyer, plaintiff's lawyer, those are bad words in the conservative world. We don't have a lot of them, not a large portion of the bar, which, there's good reason. Those are radically leftist groups. But if you don't know how to go on offense and bring lawsuits, you just get your teeth kicked in lawfare.
Oh,
really?
And so we're waking up to that as a movement, and we spent a lot of time on defense, and great to have a good defense. But we need people that can figure out what the left's doing to us. How can we do that better, more effectively, and then train fire back on them. So.
Can I talk about how you and I kind of got connected?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Because I want to make sure I can talk about it without it being like.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I've gotten 2 cease and desist so far. One of them was just basic email form, and our mutual contacts, you and I, like they said, if it doesn't have a logo, don't worry about it. And then I finally got a cease and desist that had a logo on it. It had an LLC attached to it, and it was on a PDF. And so I started, I don't want to spill our guts, but I started doing a little panicking, and so I reached out to Melinda, and she got me connected to you, and you basically said the same thing that everybody else said about the other cease and desist. Like, it's just a threat. It's an empty threat, and if it's not a lawsuit, you don't have to worry about it. So can you kind of work us through why the cease and desists are sent out by these companies?
So in general, you might have a couple of reasons for sending a cease and desist letter. You might, be a legitimate plaintiff who wants a particular action to stop, and you're ready to bring a lawsuit, and you've got all the, this means something to you. You're willing to put the dough in to make it happen. You want this to stop. But some plaintiffs' lawyers, they build their business model around basically getting people to fork over small dollar amounts for only having to send a cease and desist, right? So that's a second reason you might be doing it. A third reason is you just want to harass somebody. You don't actually have the firepower to go do anything, but you want to make somebody's life uncomfortable, and it's not really hard to do that if all you're doing is sending cease and desist, right? And maybe they change course, maybe they change behavior, and then you get a little victory. So a couple of reasons why somebody might send a cease and desist.
And so you can send a cease and desist anyway. Like, you can send it via email or hand deliver it. Yeah,
there's no formal delivery requirement. There's nothing under the rules of. I mean, cease and desists aren't a part of the formal rules of civil procedure, which do mandate certain requirements for serving a lawsuit. It's a different thing to just send somebody a cease and desist. You want proof that they got it.
Yeah,
that's helpful. But
So when it comes to a cease and desist, are they allowed to like demand money in a cease and desist?
you can demand. You can demand whatever you want.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you can. These are my demands. Meet them or else.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then and one of those things is cease and desist the thing that you're doing.
Right.
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 And you can also say, and pay me X number of dollars in damages, and I want you to show up on the corner of such and such and such and such wearing a pink hat on this date so I can take a picture. I mean, you can put in there whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
And whether or not the other party complies, and that's a different story.
Wow. Okay. Well.
So you just gave us 3 examples of why someone would do a cease and desist. One, they're serious about it. Number 2, they're trying to get small dollar amounts from you. I guess that means I'm suing you for $4,000. Pay it now, or
Well, no, they just demand it.
they just demand it.
Like
right?
they'll demand you
Well, that's what I'm
stop
saying.
doing,
That's
and
what
then
I'm
they'll
saying.
also demand money from you, but it's not even a part of the lawsuit.
Well,
right?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a typical, you'd say, cease and desist doing X activity. You've injured me on the, amounts ranging from, and then you list something $100,000 to millions of dollars and say, basically I'll agree that this goes away if you pay me
Right.
10 grand right now or 50 grand right now
Exactly.
or whatever it is.
Right, right.
That's right.
And the third one is they just want to harass you.
Yeah.
So what if you, unbeknownst to you, more than likely, you get the second or the third one, and you simply don't cease and desist? What happens?
If the person sending you the letter fits into category 2 or 3, then nothing happens. Maybe they send you another one.
Okay. So what you're saying is what you originally told me was it's basically just a threat, like in.
It could be that. It very well could be that. Yeah.
Okay. I love how he's choosing his words carefully.
It's very lawyerly.
Yeah, very
lawyerly.
But I like it. I almost became a lawyer, and then I found out how much it was going to cost, and I was like, "Ha ha, let's go somewhere else."
Congratulations.
And you went to Harvard.
I did not. I went to Stanford.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I read
right.
that.
They're both equally suspect. So
was it a liberal school?
It's Ivy.
He's laughing.
It's Ivy League.
Was it a liberal school?
Was UT a liberal school?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I my introduction to the left sort of started in UT.
Okay.
So I went down there. I told my dad. My dad was a trucker, and I said, "Dad, I want to go to college." He said, "Okay. Better be able to make more than like 35, 40 grand a year if you're gonna do that, because I can get you that driving a truck right now." And so I printed out the degrees from the University of Texas. I went up to our high school library and found this website, Average Pay Upon Graduation from UT. Printed it out, took it home. First one was petroleum engineering, and my mom said, "You're not living in Houston. You can't do that." Okay.
That's a good decision from your mother.
All right. Number 2 was electrical engineering. I said, "Well, what's that?" I don't know. I guess that's what I'm doing. So I started off, and UT's EE program is a very good program. It's very difficult. Coming from a small town, I'd interact with my professors. I'd show up to office hours before class even started, and I'd just say, "Hey, taking your class, just want to say hello." And to a man, they all had the same reaction. They would look at me and say, "Why are you here again?" "I just want to introduce myself." "Okay, thanks."
Wow.
Right. I mean, that's the response that I got from my EE profs, right? I mean, and then I take this required government class. It's like my 3rd year. I'm almost done. I got like 10 hours left, and my wife and I had just gotten married. We got married the summer before, and I've got to take this class. I'm really upset because it conflicts with I'm working at ARL UT lab right at the time, and anyway, I ended up loving the class, but I went to this guy's office hours, and I said, "Hey, I'm so and so. I'm taking your class." And he said, "Well, come in, sit down, tell me about yourself."
Oh, wow.
So,
You're like,
turns out this guy's like the one conservative Christian in the UT philosophy government department.
Doesn't that make sense? That just makes sense.
Anyway, so he became a mentor, and so that's anyway. He had started a program. This professor had started a program that was eventually going to become a degree, and it was a program in Western civilization. And they brought in great conservative speakers. It was basically going to be like a core curriculum. So first 2 years you come in and you take kind of what had classically been a liberal arts kind of core-based curriculum. You don't really get a lot of choices, and then you get some more choices in your 3rd and 4th year. And if you want that experience, the degree in Western civilization would give that to you. And the dean of the liberal arts college came in sort of when they were on the cusp of approval and just yanked it, right, because they were bringing in speakers that were
Too
Too conservative, right? So that was, and there were hearings at UT, like at the state legislature and the House, and I mean it was a whole deal, and so yeah, I mean it was a hopelessly liberal place then. And,
wow,
that stinks. Yeah, it's Nick brought up the whole headline, the liberal headline that if you work out, then you're you're
right wing radical.
Yeah, you're right wing radical. Well, it reminds me, the first time I heard anything like that was coming out of the UT Austin newspaper, and this was like 2015.
Sure,
like a long time ago. And
Is
the
that really
headline,
that long ago?
It's not that long ago. That's like 11 years ago.
Well, okay.
That's kind of a long
what I
time,
mean
guess.
by
If
that.
you would have said 1995, I would have been okay. That's
Listen,
a long time
man,
ago.
in political terms, okay,
Okay.
that was quite a while ago. The headline coming out of this UT Austin newspaper was along those same lines. It was like, working out in the gym, it's proven that it gives you toxic masculinity or something ridiculous like that. And that's about, so I guess you could say that was about the same time I started down my rabbit hole through the circumnavigation of politics. So UT Austin, I guess, is kind of responsible for my introduction.
They're a liberal
that
school, but it
as
seems
well.
like they're producing a lot of conservative people.
Well, some people
that funny?
respond very well. I mean, your kids, for example, you're thinking, where are they going to go to college? If they're going to go to college, what sort of place to, and you have to be discerning about that. My oldest, like he's 13 now. He's a sharp kid. He's thoughtful, reflective, like does not fall for BS.
Good.
And one day, when he's ready, I'll light him on fire and I'll pick the darkest spot I can and just let him go. And 2 or 3 years later, he'll set the whole thing on fire. I've no doubt. Right?
Nice.
My daughter, sweet, loving, wants everybody to feel loved and accepted. She's going basically to a convent 5 minutes down the road. She's going for dinner every night, right? I mean, and so there are a lot of, and I was sort of in category 1, right? So went to UT, had a certain experience, was at Stanford when Trump first got elected, just sort of doubled down on the whole thing. And so, yeah, I mean, that can be a great training, right? I mean, when I stood up in a Stanford Law School class and held forth on a particular position that everybody in the room wanted me to be wrong about, and I was still standing when it was all done, I'd be pretty convinced I'm right about that. Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that didn't always happen. Sometimes I lost. And then you think, okay, well, why did I lose? Right? Like, where am I wrong? Was it just that I didn't think of or I didn't know enough? Right? Or am I legitimately incorrect about this? And do I need to rethink it? So it can be a great training ground, and that's not what the left intends, but it's a silver lining.
Absolutely. So you've got this career that you're doing, that you're living right now. It comes from Stanford and it comes from UT Austin. It comes from the right professors in college, and now you've got a legal career happening, and now you're going into politics. So would you consider that the beginning of a second career, or is it sort of like the evolution of you? And one question I would ask is why? Why are you deciding to suffer the soul-sucking battleground of politics?
It's the money, Nick. I can't resist the money.
There you go.
So I see this. I see this as of a piece. I don't see this as a different trajectory. I don't know how long ago, maybe a decade ago, I sort of had this sense that like cultural confrontation was kind of my vocational call. Right. So be public, be open, be direct, be thoughtful and strategic, be uncompromising,
I like
and
that.
go after them. And that was, stuff like what happened when I was an undergrad, and I saw what happened to these professors who were trying to do something good, true, and beautiful, and it was taken from them because of ideological differences. And then I joined the military, and one of the first things I get told is, "Hey, LT, make sure you guys are at the gay pride run."
What?
This weekend. And I just thought, like, we're not supposed to be mixed up in these sort of cultural issues. Like, what are we doing here? And then I'm at Stanford, and during Trump's first election, 15 to 18 were my years there, and I see how my administration responds. And then we come home, and COVID hits, and I get the order from the military, go get the vaccine. My employer implements a draconian vaccine policy. A lot of our friends, their children in public schools are getting, like, they're seeing the indoctrination that's been happening, and so, I from the work that we're doing at the law firm to starting the classical Christian school that we started, in addition to pushing back against the vaccine in the military, I also got reprimanded for some comments I made at a buddy's retirement ceremony.
Wow.
The
What, from
flautist.
the military?
What's that?
From the military? Like
Yeah.
reprimanded from the military?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I still serve as a reservist. I'm an active reservist today. I
Okay.
serve at Headquarters Space Systems Command out at Cape Canaveral, Florida.
Air Force.
Correct.
Got it.
I'm in a Space Force billet, but I'm an airman.
Okay.
So a buddy invites me. I come out. I deliver some remarks at his retirement ceremony, and the flautist in the Navy band took issue with some things that I
Of
said.
course,
The
it would be
flautist?
the flautist, man.
Was it a woman?
It was not a woman. I don't think.
Any dude that's a flautist is going to have problems.
Yeah.
with
So I got formally reprimanded for that. And so it's over and over again. I was like, fine. Fine.
Bring it
Like
on.
if this is the way this is going to go, then game on, right?
Yeah.
And I will take you on, and I will win, or I will die a pauper trying. So let's go. And
kind of guy I want representing the country.
ever since then, that's that we've been mixed up in the fight, and the Lord's always provided.
Yeah.
It's been very difficult, but I think that's probably a good indication that you're walking out in your vocation, right? The goal of the Christian life is to be crucified with Christ.
Absolutely.
That's got to be a painful public process. And I
Very good
really
point.
can't think of a better description of politics than painful in public.
there you go. I suppose
you know what?
that answers that question.
I'm so glad that you said that because, with us doing this podcast, this is pretty much my full-time job. So I get all the blunt of all the, bad messages and comments that come through. And I've started here recently to get really, really just battered. But that comment just gave me a lot of, that gave me a lot of breath. That gave me a lot of relief because I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen it in that light before. That's good.
It's a beautiful thing about our faith is that, the icon of our faith, Christ on the cross, is a picture of suffering.
It is.
So if you're not suffering, then you are not following Christ.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we don't go seek it out. We're not masochists, right?
No, but we know it's there.
But it will come.
Yeah.
When you are doing the thing the Lord has created you to do, it will come. And when it comes, there's in the economy of God, there's just this beautiful principle that says He can take the suffering and work it to the good of His whole body. And sometimes you're not going to learn sort of the beautiful consequences of offering that suffering up in a serious way until you get to the other side.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can, and
that's good.
And so finding yourself in that spot's not a bad place to be.
I love it. You said something I wanted to kind of go back to. You got reprimanded for the vaccine
Yes.
in the military,
Yes.
and I want to bring that up because I know that's one of your posts on X.
Yeah.
There was something that was said in that, and me and Nick, I even read it off to Nick, and we were like, "What?" So can you walk us through that story?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm an active reservist. We separate from active duty after 4 years to go to law school and then come back home so our kids can be close to grandparents. So I'm serving on active duty in 2021. I get the written order to go get the vaccine. And I'm told, tell us by, and I believe the date was October 18th, 2021, whether you want to apply for a religious and or a medical exemption request this vaccine. So everybody gets this written order in August or September 2021. Now, as an attorney, I knew that the Air Force and my commander, the Space Force, couldn't put a time limit on my First Amendment rights.
Right.
I didn't have to make the religious exemption request that quick, right? So I could take my time with it. So I applied for medical on the strong advice of my primary care physician. He had run a bunch of tests. I'd had COVID. He said, Jace, you're young, you're healthy. You've got antibodies that are incredibly strong. It's going to be 5 years before you get anything that's even associated with COVID, given how strong these antibodies are. You should know, you get this shot, there's a chance you're going to get one of these 7 or 8 conditions. And I forget what they were exactly, but his words to me were, it will make it difficult for you to provide for your wife and children if you get one of these.
Wow.
And I said, well, I'm out. I don't even have to think about that. So we put in the medical, and this, some doc in the Air Force calls me, and after a 90-second conversation, he says, we're denying your request, right? And I'm like, well, did you read the letter that my PCM, who has met me and evaluated me, read? Like, you haven't even done a physical on me. Like, you don't know anything about me. You don't know if I have comorbidities or not. He said, no, we're denying it.
Wow.
So at that point, my commander gave me, I forget the number of days. It was basically right around Christmas time. It was like I had to get it by like Christmas Day or something. He gave me a short extension. That extension came and went. and he formally reprimanded me, issued me a letter of reprimand, LOR, which is it's a serious form of paperwork, career ending in the Air Force. And so at that point, I had studied the effects of the vaccine, and I had prayed enough to know that getting this vaccine was going to violate my conscience and my religious convictions. And so I said, sir, it's inappropriate, basically, for you to reprimand me because I have a religious objection to getting this vaccine. And he said, nope, that deadline already came and went. And I said, respectfully, sir, you can ask your JAG. You're going to rescind this LOR, and you're going to set up an interview with me for a chaplain. We're going to go through the religious exemption request process because that's what the Constitution requires you to do.
Oh man!
And that's what he did.
Awesome.
Now, it was very respectful, and I was not. I'm not here to be disrespectful.
Sure.
But he was apparatchik in a system that was designed to do something, and it wasn't to make sure that our military was ready to go fight and win our nation's wars. So the first step in that process is to have an interview with a chaplain. Title VII requires that the person lodging the objection have a legitimate and sincere, religious conviction against fulfilling this particular policy, in this case, getting the vaccine. So I'm ready for an interrogation, right? I'm thinking he's not going to be on my team. I mean, he works for the Gestapo, right? Mm-hmm. Turns out he was. He was a good dude. 30 seconds into the conversation, he could sense I was a serious Christian, and I knew that he was. And he told me, direct quote, my superiors have instructed me to trick you into saying things that'll make it easier for them to deny your religious exemption request. Wow. And that's so contrary to the oath I took as a chaplain that I'm telling all of my interviewees that I'm going to write you the strongest letter I can. I said, brother, I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
So it was a very short consideration. Sounds like
you lost sleep over that. I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. You look out for each other when you find. I mean, it's rare. Yeah. It's rare, but man, he was doing God's work, and the Lord will reward him for that. I'll guarantee. But anyway, they denied my exemption request because they denied 100% of the requests that they received.
Wow!
Even after all that,
he still denied it.
Yeah, they denied it.
Wow!
And so I'm on my third appeal to the Surgeon General when the injunction comes out of a district court in Ohio. A bunch of airmen at Wright-Patt Air Force Base had sued in federal district court, and the judge in that case said, "Air Force, you got to stop kicking people out of the military just for refusing to get the vaccine until we get done with this litigation." So that was summer 2022. And that bought me some runway. So I'm just kind of sitting there. My command hates me. And I'm just kind of waiting. December comes, Congress passes, and Joe Biden signs the NDAA for 2023, instructing then Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin to rescind his memorandum requiring military members to get the vaccine. So he rescinds it, and I've never been kicked out. I've never gotten the jab. And
wow. Did they rescind your LOR?
They had to. They did that before I even had my interview with my chaplain.
Oh,
right?
Good.
Okay. I got a religious objection to this thing. You can't reprimand me for not getting it until you adjudicate that.
So I wonder why Joe Biden rescinded everything in 2023 when
Joe Biden didn't do anything. By the way,
well, that's true. I mean, it was all auto pen, right?
I think
but it's just kind of ironic to me that you would force so many military men and women to get the jab, and if they don't, you kick them out, and then all of a sudden you change your mind in 2023.
Well, it was Republicans in Congress who forced his hand on the House Armed Services Committee and otherwise.
Really?
I mean, and by that point, right? You remember, even by was it December 2021, Omicron variant kicks up. Mm-hmm. You're more likely to get the COVID if you've gotten the vaccine.
Yep.
Yeah.
By that point.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so it had been a year of that, and I think maybe going back to this sort of competence point, there comes a time when you just can't lie to yourself enough, right? Mm-hmm. On a mass scale, it's just not going to work unless you've habituated people in the way that sort of communist regimes had, sort of in the late stages.
Yeah.
They're just not going to play the public game. And there was enough pushback and enough fervor in support of our military members that Congress did it and Joe Biden signed it.
Yeah, I have a lot of military friends that left the military because of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they wanted. They wanted guys like me to get out, right? And I remember having this thought, like, well, I could just quit because I don't have to. I mean, I've fulfilled my obligation. I can quit whenever I want to. And I thought, well, maybe I just go quietly into that good night, you know? Mm-hmm. And then I thought, this isn't how I feed my family. I'm not like dependent on this. But there are some guys, 16, 17, 18 years in, they got that pension coming. They don't have a college degree. They got kids to raise. If I won't stand up and say something, right? Like,
they're certainly not.
They're not going to. They don't want to rock the boat.
It's not going to cost me nearly as much as it's going to cost them. To my fellow, and to those that got the vaccine in the military, I don't hold it against them.
Of course not.
If I'm looking down the barrel of like, you're going to kick me out after 17 years, like, and you don't get a pension. It's not, I mean, at that time, it wasn't like, oh, you get sort of the percentage of whatever but no, it's you get nothing.
So if you refuse to get the vaccine in the military and they had all those pensions and they were in the military for so long, was that a dishonorable discharge?
It didn't have to be.
Okay.
And my understanding is it varied.
Okay.
It varied.
So it just depended on what was going on.
Yeah.
Man.
Wow.
That's incredible. So did you also have something, you got reprimanded by, you said your employer?
So I did not get reprimanded by my employer. I left voluntarily.
Okay.
They implemented a pretty draconian vaccine policy.
Okay. And this is the law firm.
That's right. Yeah. And I kind of became the counselor for a bunch. I was an associate, so I'm not a partner.
okay.
I don't have any status or power. But I became kind of a counselor for some associates who didn't want to get the vaccine, but didn't know quite what to do. Right. And I just refused to play. Like, I'm like, no, I'm not getting this thing. Like, I'm not asking you to give me an exemption. Like, I'm not going to tell you my vaccine status. This is no.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not playing ball.
Yeah.
And my fingerprint stopped working. So to get into our offices for security reasons, you had your fingerprint in, right? And my fingerprint stopped working.
Uh-huh.
That was an intimidation factor? Or
they told us it was coming. They were like, if you got your vaccine status, basically, it's got to give you clearance to get in the building.
Gotcha.
Wow.
I was the only associate coming in before that, and then I don't know if any associate was coming in after that or not, but I certainly wasn't anymore because I couldn't get in. Funny story, when I was struggling with whether I was going to leave because I had done some good things.
Yeah.
I'd been in the courtroom and some, like, head of my department had seen me, and like she was trying to figure out ways to, like, she just kept telling me, like, look, don't worry about it. Like, we will figure it out. Stay, like, you know. And so I'm talking with my dad. I'm like, Dad, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm thinking about leaving, but I feel like I got a shot at making partner. And, my dad's a trucker, right? Blue collar job, like, very wise though. And he just said, well, I don't think a guy that can't get into his office got a very good shot at making partner.
Very,
very wise.
Basic, simple,
very, very wise.
Logic.
I said, well, Dad, I got nothing on that. So there you go.
It's a good word. Maybe I'll just go home.
There you go. But yeah, so I just, I resigned the day before that policy went into effect. They basically said, you gotta come into the office 3 days a week, and you gotta have the vaccine to come into the office. So the day before that first day, I just set them out.
Wow. And then you started your own firm.
Not exactly. I went to another big law firm for a year, the only one I could find that basically had a don't ask, don't tell policy. And that just that wasn't working out. The firm I had been at was the oldest firm in Texas. They had represented Bush and Bush v. Gore. They had a reputation for being a place conservatives could go.
Okay.
And I'm a 7th generation Texan. Like, the first Yarbrough came over and fought in the Revolution. Like, this is, wow. I loved being a part of that firm, and I was proud of that.
Yeah.
The second one, it just wasn't a good fit, wasn't for me. And so then I left, and I went in with a buddy who he had started the firm, and he was a solo practitioner for about a year and a half before I came on board, and he got kicked up when a bunch of United pilots came to him and said, we want to sue United for trying to force us to get the vax. Would you represent us? So that's how our firm got started, and I teamed up with him after.
Can we ask about that case or no?
Sure, yeah.
Did y'all win?
Ongoing. So
it's still going.
Yeah, still going.
Okay.
So a big fight over class certification that got drug out. We just got a ruling from the 5th Circuit a couple months ago on class cert. So that's that's kind of early in the stages of litigation. As
how many?
Does that sound?
Can I ask how many pilots?
Hundreds.
Hundreds. Wow, hundreds of United pilots.
Yeah, hundreds.
And I'm guessing that wasn't the only airline that.
No, the worst were United and Hawaiian Airlines, and we're suing both of them.
Wow. And you
United and Hawaii.
So American was not a part of that?
They were not as bad as United and Hawaiian.
No way.
Yeah.
They weren't
as bad as they are
in terms of numbers or in terms of their
not requiring it.
Draconian.
Yeah, I mean there are tricks that employers play, and you can look at percentage of percentage of exemption requests granted, for example, or what are the requirements to get an exemption request, and what do you do for the people that don't have one, and these sorts of things. And so United and Hawaiian, it's public knowledge that they were the most drastic.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, man. That's
So a lot of people, it is at least believed, died from the vaccine.
Yeah.
And from COVIDs and, the COVID vaccine and whatever else. There's a lot of class action lawsuits being filed because of that. I know that that's sort of outside your wheelhouse a little bit, but what do you think their odds are of being successful?
It depends on who you're suing. Difficult to sue the manufacturers. They have immunity for
the manufacturers.
The manufacturers have immunity?
Yeah.
Well, who else are they going to sue? Oh, I guess their company.
I've not seen a lot of these lawsuits. I mean, you can sue an employer for forcing you to violate your faith under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. That's the lawsuits, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, if you have a medical condition, right? So we brought those lawsuits. But in terms of like product liability, that's a much tougher road to hoe with the vaccine and with vaccines in general.
So did I just hear this correctly? I'm sorry. The manufacturers of the vaccine have immunity?
Correct.
I'm a little shocked by that.
It doesn't seem right, man. I mean,
so no matter how many lives are lost, they can't be held liable at all.
That's correct.
Wow.
In general.
In general.
General.
Well,
and it's my understanding that that's the case for all vaccines that are on the CDC's recommended list.
Are you a supporter of any vaccine?
I don't think vaccines are inherently immoral, if that's your question.
Yeah.
Our approach to our own children is drastically reduced and heavily delayed.
Because of what happened with COVID?
Well, even before COVID, that was sort of our position and where we were at. I'm very suspicious of doctors in white lab coats.
Same.
My law partner and I represented a Christian counselor out of the state of Washington, and for reasons I can go into if you want, it doesn't matter. But my job was to write an amicus brief demonstrating for the Supreme Court all the ways in which the medical community had made recommendations, affirmative recommendations that were to the detriment, and sometimes the lethal detriment, of the communities that followed their advice. And that was a pretty harrowing experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's a lot about medicine that we don't know, and we're not near humble enough about it as a people. And I don't know why. I don't know why the medical profession, tends to be so hubristic about so many things. But that, in my experience, they just are. They'll say things definitively, and they're just not true.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I think we all know deep down it's because it's the bottom line.
It could be. Yeah, it very well could be.
Yeah. I mean, that would be my own opinion, but it seems like it always comes back to what is their bottom line. Because how many people got rich off of the vaccine?
A lot of people made a lot of money off the vaccine.
Yeah. And so, and I hate to say it. And I'm not going to say it right now. I don't want to admit it. I don't want to admit it. I don't want to.
Go ahead, Nick.
No, I don't want to.
I don't want to
because I'm so freaking ashamed of it.
Well, I'll give it away.
What?
I'm unstuck. I never got the vax. And so, but my road was easy because I was, at the time COVID hit, I was virtually unemployed. I was living off of a inheritance. I had, any income that I had was not through an employer or anything like that. So I had nothing demanding that I go get the vax except for media and culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't believe the media, and I don't really care about culture. So I just didn't go get it.
Yeah. And to be clear, in the early days in particular, right, I'm not of the opinion that nobody should have ever gotten any of the vaccines, full stop, period. That's not where I'm at. I think the case becomes increasingly difficult to make when you get into December 2021 with the outbreak of the Omicron variant, that's for sure. But all that aside, right, what we were being told by the medical community about the science, by Fauci and his minions about the science, was complete BS.
Yeah.
And it was driven by an ideological
100%.
It was driven by an ideological agenda.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the thing that It's so funny, the left, right? Like, whatever they accuse you of, that's usually what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And they
100%.
come at us so hard about being driven
Isn't
by
that funny?
ideology. And I just say the thing that radicalized me was you guys being so stuck on your ideology that you couldn't acknowledge the fact that like an XY chromosome makes you male.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I
100%.
don't know if there's a more basic fact of biology that you can measure, right? I thought the scientific method was supposed to be like your gospel.
I know. Yeah. Science deniers.
Man.
But don't say it.
Clearly not.
Yeah. It's, my body, my choice, right?
Sure.
Until it comes to the vaccine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When it actually is your body. Your
Yeah. I
choice.
don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know that I ever take the pro-abort seriously at any level. But yes, I take your point. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy.
Yes,
And
that's correct.
It's
So
ridiculous.
if I'm an actor, and so I'm represented locally by an agent, and I remember during all that time I had already had COVID, and I was just so reluctant to go get the jab. Like I did not want to do it. But a lot of the productions, which I think one of the productions was a pretty big AMC production that was happening down in Austin,
Mm-hmm.
one of the Walking Dead TV shows.
Yes.
And they started to do a lot of tests, but they didn't make me get a jab. And then I got an audition for Walker. And it looked like they were wanting to cast me for this day player. I mean, where I actually have lines, and they would always ask, "What's your vaccination status?" I would always say I'm fully protected. I would never say vaccinated because I'm like, I've already had the shot, so I know I'm fully protected. I'm not shot. I've already had the virus, so I'm fully protected. And then I got a phone call from my agent, and they're like, "Nick, they need you to answer the question if you're vaccinated or not." And then he was like, "Nick, I know you don't want to. I know you're feeling strong-armed, but if you want to work, you're going to have to go get the shot."
Sure.
And I was like,
Sure.
and I kind of still blame my dad for this because I call my dad. He's one of my biggest counselors, and he's a pastor out in Las Cruces. He's like, "Nick, they're not making you do anything. And if you want to work, then you probably need to go get the shot."
Sure.
And I was like,
Yeah.
and I was reluctant. And this is before I was doing all of what we're doing now,
Yeah.
which,
Sure.
and I went down and I got the first jab. I hate that I have to admit that, dude. Like it really, it pisses me
Oh,
off.
I remember when
that
you did it, man. He comes walking into the gym with his tail tucked between his legs,
I mean,
looking all like he hadn't slept.
no, I was sick,
all
dude. I got
depressed
sick.
and-
It wasn't depression. I was sick again.
Well, you seemed like you were depressed about it.
Well,
You know,
I mean, I
not
was definitely depressed about it.
but you
Hang on, I have a point to this. You're interrupting. So I'm telling you all this. Would I have a case against that production?
You potentially you could.
Okay.
I mean, there's statute of limitations. You would have had to gone down. You would have had to file a claim with the under federal law, the EEOC. You'd
Okay.
have to file a claim with it a certain number of time. That time period has passed.
Oh, okay.
If
So
it happened in
not
sort of
now,
the
but
2020, 2021 era, but
yeah.
we have some clients who received the shot and are still our clients, and there are viable theories of recovery if you receive the shot.
When you say viable theories of recovery, like to cleanse your blood of
No, I mean
vaccine?
legally.
Oh, okay.
So employment law, Title VII, right? You got to measure, right? So in a civil suit, usually it's has A harm to B, and if the answer to that question is yes, then the question usually is, well, how much from A to B? How much money?
Yeah.
And you got to measure that, right? What's the measure of damages? And so in employment cases, usually the measure of damages is like lost income of some kind. There's also a pain and suffering element to that.
Yeah.
Obviously, somebody who takes the shot and then continues employment, they don't have that first bucket. And so your theory of recovery is going to have to be based on pain and suffering subsequent to, you taking the shot, and as a result of you taking the shot, that sort of thing. So that's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like I don't have much of a case because I didn't file anything. But okay.
Is anything like
Sad.
this ever going to happen again? Like an epidemic that comes along and challenges us on a social level to be either a country of liberty or a country of government control?
I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I know that the Democratic Party is currently nominating those who are open Marxists. And I know that Marxism was the deadliest ideological experiment in the history of humankind. 100 million people in the 20th century. The kinds of questions that citizens have to ask themselves under communist regimes are very much the kinds of questions we were asking ourselves in the COVID era. That there are all sorts of tricks that Marxist regimes play on citizens in order to equivocate on what's actually happening, right? So I don't know if, I mean, you read Solzhenitsyn, for example. You read the Gulag Archipelago. One of the most frustrating things for me was hearing the sort of recounting of what went on in courtrooms. And you can see from the very beginning, I mean, this guy's cooked. He's completely cooked. Judge, jury, his own representation is against him. And they could do that in sort of this, like, they sanitize everything with euphemism, and they don't call anything what it is. And so, you know, I try to use fairly stark language when I talk about what they did during the COVID era. And I do that because what you don't want the kind of lies and the soft lies that the regime tells you to sort of remove from your mind the really stark images that ought to be there.
Yeah.
And so using direct language, clear language, true language is a great way to kind of cleanse the regime's propaganda from your mind.
Yeah.
And so they will engage. I mean, that's what Marxist regimes do. They engage in the kind of propaganda that tries to lull people into sleep, and it's our job to be very dedicated to the truth and not participate in conduct or speech we know to be false.
Yeah. Do you think it's enough to say that the left's first line of offense against the right or against decency or whatever is language? Like, their war is against language first and foremost?
I think it is certainly one of the top priorities. Yes. And I think, you know, George Orwell wrote that famous essay, Politics in the English Language. That's a great essay. And it goes direct to this point. Yeah, I think that's probably true. But I think the thing the precursor to that, though, is that there's a reason that certain language is fitting and certain language is not fitting, right? You can say, and this is a famous example that C.S. Lewis, if you've never read The Abolition of Man, I highly recommend it, but he talks about a scene from a fairly famous poem in which two people describe a waterfall. One describes the waterfall as sublime. This is a sublime waterfall. And Lewis basically says that's a proper and appropriate adjective, right? You have to have some objective standard by which you're measuring the appropriateness of a word, right? So that's really, I mean, the left comes after this idea of objectivity, right? And we've known that for, you know, your truth is your truth, and the sort of like new age BS that was all the rage in the 80s, 90s, and early aughts. And so I would probably go back a little bit further, and I would say, you know, the standard by which you measure whether language is appropriate is something that that they have attacked in the first instance. But they're also very good at just spin and propaganda, right?
Yeah.
And they try, you know, haltingly sometimes, right? Like birthing persons. I mean, that probably wasn't their best like PR, you know.
Yeah.
Best PR days. But
I think the first time I started to identify that they are, well, not to sound redundant, their war is against language was back when the Supreme Court said that same-sex marriages could happen. They legalized same-sex marriages, and the big slogan was "Love wins."
Yeah,
and I thought love was never on the table, man.
Yeah.
Like we weren't arguing who could or couldn't love who, and so. But if you went against that slogan, "Love wins," and tried to correct it by that stark language you're talking about, no, same-sex marriage won, then you become a bigot and you become, you know, the bad guy. You're the problem, so to speak.
Yeah, I want to be clear and say I actually don't think that public argument and arguments really are that effective in sort of driving culture. Humans are persuaded by all sorts of things, a small piece of which have to do with sort of our rational faculty. Important? Yes. The ultimate standard by which we should measure things? Sure, absolutely. Is that how most people for most of time, including our own, have made the decisions they make? No. All sorts of other reasons, right? The opinion of others, what traditions have you received, what are the pictures or images you have in your mind and you associate with things whenever they pop up, right? And so any good rhetorician, which is, I don't think that's a pejorative term, any good rhetorician is going to try to conjure images of good, true, and beautiful things in the minds of his listeners when he's talking about the ends to which he wants people to move toward. And the left is much better at that than we are.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We think, oh, well, Federalist number 10 says, And like, no, man, like that's not okay. We need to have that formation. You want to be good at the new media. You want to be good at things like podcasts and, you know, standing up and giving like public speeches and being on X. You need to get good at some of the deeper ideas, right? Read the old stuff and have a good foundation and formation, and then bring that to the table and recognize the medium that you're fighting in and what's actually going to move your listeners. Because if you stand up there and start talking, you know, citing Aristotle's politics, nobody's going to listen to you. Now, should you know Aristotle's politics? Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're in the sort of fights that we're in right now and trying to redeem Western civilization. But so I don't want to suggest that like we should be content in the fact that we have better formation in the founding fathers and their jurisprudence or something like that. It's important that we do, but we should recognize our adversaries for their competence in this area, and they are very good at it.
Yeah. I think if I had to put it in layman terms, what you just said, it sounds like the left is really good at drawing emotion. And if they can attach your emotion to something, and especially if it's a good emotion, that's how they can bring you over to whatever side.
Sure.
You know what that whole explanation reminded me of that you just did? It's the war in the church on new worship versus old hymns. Because I used to be a worship leader, and I would hear this argument all the freaking time. Because, you know, the old people didn't like the 7-Eleven songs, and the new people didn't like the old songs. But, you know, the old songs had the theology in it.
Sure.
And the new songs just had the same 7 words, you know, repeated 11 times in a row.
Sure.
And literally what you were just saying, that was coming to my mind. I was like, oh, I've heard this argument before. You know, because and the reason why the old people don't like the newer stuff is because it is playing more on your emotions. It doesn't have deep theology tied to it.
Yeah.
And we need to get back to that deep theology.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, I do think there's a place and there's a certain appetite. Some of the older language can conjure. You know, like, so I was raised a Southern Baptist.
Same.
We're Catholic now.
That's interesting.
Happy to talk about it if y'all would like. A lot of the emotion in kind of new worship wasn't actually so much associated with the words and content of the theology that being expressed. It was really the environment.
Yeah.
You know, it was the environment. And that's not a bad thing. Like, an environment is one way that we can sort of conduce toward focusing our minds and hearts on God. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to criticize that. But and maybe this is my own particular bent. I'm always more moved by deeper and richer language in the music that I'm singing, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's set to new music, right? Even it's sort of contemporary beats or instruments.
Right.
It's and some of them do. Some of them have very rich theology.
Oh, I agree.
And that's great. But anyway, yeah.
I would love to hear how you made the switch from Southern Baptist to Catholicism.
Well, and it's a long story and a short story and unique to me and not unique to me at all. The best I can do, and to try and say it respectfully, right? So the first is I'm very grateful for my Southern Baptist upbringing because the scriptures are like hidden in my heart.
Yeah, agreed.
They're just like, and I'm so grateful for that. My mom and dad took me to church twice on Sundays and every Wednesday night because that's what we did. Is good. My granddad was a Southern Baptist pastor. We were in vacation Bible school.
My dad
every
was
summer.
a Southern Baptist pastor.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah. I'm relating to everything.
You're tracking,
yeah.
yes. And you know, Chesterton, he was asked the question when he became a Catholic, like, why? And he said, well, 1,000 reasons, but all of them the same, namely that it's true. That's the only real reason to believe something, is that it is true. And so that's a general answer.
Okay.
I mean, and we can start the story in any number of places. I think maybe one place to begin was I came to the conviction that the realization, and this was from Lewis actually, that you know, man is man because he's two parts. He's animal and spirit together. And you need the animal side, you need the spirit side, and you need them together. If you don't have both of those together, you're not dealing with a man here. And he says, Lewis, in his very pithy way, says this.
You're talking about C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis, right? He says the whole of Christianity can be proved on almost all of it can be proved on two facts. One, men tell crude jokes, and two, they're afraid of ghosts. Right? The spirit side of us finds the animal side funny.
Oh, I see.
And if I see a spirit that doesn't have a body, I get very concerned. Right? I think it's not right here.
Yeah.
And his whole, Miracles, the book he wrote was all about Christ, like God coming incarnate.
Yeah.
Right? Like God took on flesh. And that is the motif for understanding all of creation. unique to Christianity.
Yeah.
And so then, I mean, a very simple way to put it is, okay, if God made me spirit and body, wouldn't he give me means of salvation appropriate to both, to save both? Because that's the promise I have, is a resurrection like Christ's, which was bodily. His body is not in the grave anymore.
Exactly.
You go there, it's gone. The
Right.
physical thing is gone. And so then sacramental theology, you could see, comes in very, like, that becomes a whole new world where you think like, oh, well, maybe there is something to sort of the physical, tactile, tangible portion of offering right worship to God. Well, what is that?
Yeah.
So that's one kind of way to talk about how it started.
I was curious because we work for a production company that's based out of Detroit, and our CEO, he's our boss / partner, and he was a Luciferian that came to know Christ. Yeah, he came to know Christ, and we just did an episode with him to where he explains the whole thing.
Wow.
Because he went through a whole diatribe of like different religions, and then became an atheist, and then he became a Luciferian, and then the Holy Spirit got a hold of him in a really radical way, and he became a Protestant Christian.
Yeah.
And then he recently, in the past 2 years, became a Catholic.
Okay.
And so I was just kind of curious of, the road that you went down from Southern Baptist to Catholicism.
Yeah.
Because I have friends who have gone the other way too. Like they
Yeah.
started as Catholicism and now they're Protestant Christian or whatever. One thing that we can all agree on is that, for one, Jesus is the Son of God. He
Yes.
came down in flesh.
Amen.
He was crucified, dead and buried,
Amen.
rose again on the third day,
Amen.
born of a virgin.
Yes.
Like these are baseline core values that we all agree on.
Yes.
And so I can always, people ask me about, what about the Catholics? I'm like, they're brothers as long as they believe the core values.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks be
And
to
most
God.
of them do. I mean, do we get a little lost in, I guess you could say, procedural things when it comes to, like, if we agree on them or not? Sure. But I can still have a great conversation with a Catholic brother,
Yes.
and my boss is a prime example of that. Because I haven't seen, kind of like you said, you're raised Southern Baptist, and you're thankful for that because it
Yes.
helps you hide God's word in your heart.
Absolutely.
Same thing happened with him. Like I'm glad he was brought in to the faith this way,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's because all it's doing is just strengthening his faith,
Yeah.
and deepening his faith in a lot of different areas. So, because I'm a worship leader, or was a worship leader, the first church I sang in was a Catholic church.
Is that right?
That was so different. Being raised Southern Baptist,
Yeah.
and everything's in front of you. And
Yeah.
then this Catholic church, everything was behind them.
Yeah.
Like they have all the music and everything behind them. And I was like, and I did not do well. It was terrible. And this is coming from a guy who later went on to have a vocal scholarship. And, I was the only one in high school choir that made it to all region choir out of 50 people who so, I mean, yes. Can I sing? Yes. But that was a terrible performance.
Oh.
So that's my I could say my experience with the Catholic faith when it comes to I even had a Catholic girlfriend in high school.
Okay.
And out of the 6 girlfriends I had in high school, and you're like, oh my gosh, you had 6 girlfriends. It was all within a 2-year span, and they were all like 2 months of a relationship. But she was the best one out of all of them. Yeah, because she was super loyal. She was very traditional. Just all the stuff that you could want in a potential, future mate, if that's where it was going to go.
Sure.
Now I'm in a relationship with a girl who is freaking awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah, dude. I'm really excited about that. Being
And I
older.
sang back up for Greece one time.
No, he
that
didn't.
right?
No, he
Yeah, I
didn't.
sure did.
No one wants to hear you
With
sing
that
it.
hair. How
No one
about
wants to hear you sing.
That's awesome.
Back when I had hair.
So, when it comes to the Islamification of Texas,
Mm-hmm.
what is something that you can tell people that they can do right now? Because I have a lot of people coming in my DMs and comments and whatnot. They're like, "What can we do? How is this continuing to happen?" Because I'm covering it. A lot of other people, a lot of other content creators are covering it. I have a video popping off right now of, I don't know if you saw the video that Jake Lane did just recently in Dearborn, Michigan, where he was literally just speaking in the name of Jesus, and it just set the Muslims in that area into a frenzy.
Sure.
So what can we do other than what I've been telling them, which is pray, but
Yes.
what is some physical things that they can do?
Yeah. I get asked the question a lot from the other side. What are you going to do on the policy side? Right.
Mhm.
So I'm going to set that aside. That's not the question you asked.
Yeah.
What can we do?
That's coming.
Oh, great. I've practiced that one a number of times. So I think the first thing is a recognition of how this issue is playing out in the wider context, right?
Okay.
So this is the broader picture here is immigration. Okay, so we have a massive immigration problem because of the scale that we've experienced over the past 30 years, basically, right? You have to have a dominant culture in order to have any hope of a stable pluralistic culture, right?
Yeah.
And we have bought into the idea that as long as we have the correct procedures for conflict resolution, we can bring any number of people from any parts of the world with any background and put them all together geographically and everything will be fine. And that's not true.
No,
It's not true.
not at all.
So the fact that you want to fight for the American way of life and to prioritize and prefer Americans over others in the world, that doesn't make you anti-Christian, right? People that come at you and say, well, oh, your job is to welcome the stranger. They say, well, that's one of the scriptures. Another one from St. Paul is, he who provides not for his own, especially those of his own house, has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. The unique heritage that Americans have to offer the world is our Christian faith, that we are a Christian nation.
Right.
And that has a very stark political consequence, namely that we recognize as citizens, we have a formation that says every person, regardless of whether they agree with me or disagree in matters of faith or politics or culture, is made in the image of God and worthy of my respect. They have dignity, and that dignity does not come from me, and it doesn't come from our government.
Yeah.
My religious obligation, my civic duty for those who are not like non-religious Americans, there's instinctual, what they think is, I've got to treat people with respect, right? I wait in line. I wait my turn in line. Basic understanding. You go to DFW airport right now. A bunch of Indians have figured out that if you ask for a wheelchair, you'll get priority boarding and someone will push you around the airport. And so you've seen these videos of 30, 40, 50 Indians lined up in these wheelchairs outside of gate D25, right? No American would ever do that. That's not something that we as a people would do en masse like that. Why?
Yeah.
Well, in part because
human respect.
That's right.
That's
exactly correct. Treat others as you would be treated. Do to others as you would be done by. This is our ethic,
point.
right?
Yeah.
This is who we are as a people. Recognizing that fighting for your country, fighting for America, is fighting for that heritage to be offered to the world, right? We have a unique place, and we will never be able to get back the fact that this country, like the Pilgrims, when they got off the Mayflower, what did they say in the Mayflower? Why were they doing this? For the advancement of the kingdom of Christ. Why did Christopher Columbus set sail? Was it so Buddhists could worship God according to their lights? No. It's to advance the kingdom of Christ. That's a precious heritage. You should be proud of that.
Yeah.
You should stand up and say something about it. Tallest statue in Texas right now.
Yeah. Sam Houston?
Hindu monkey god.
Oh, Hindu monkey god.
I didn't know. I knew they built it. I didn't know it was taller than Sam Houston.
Yeah, tallest one in Texas. Should be a statue of Christ. That should be the tallest statue in ours, right? So I think for the average person, it is a recovery of this, just the recognition of the preciousness of our heritage because of its foundation on Christ, and standing up and saying so and not being afraid, right? And say, no, Jesus is greater than Muhammad, right? Jesus Christ is the light of the world.
Yeah.
And if you want peace and contentment, he is the only way, ultimately, right? That conviction for yourself, for your children, for your neighbors, and particularly to the, if there are, young men in particular, something to say to them, right? Our culture has obviously vilified young men for a long time, and lots of things working against them. You have a heritage and a responsibility, okay? The number one predictor of whether or not a child will continue in the faith is whether they saw their father taking it seriously.
That's good.
As a man, your behavior has an impact on those who are watching you, particularly those that are closest to you and that you love the most. Your sisters, your cousins, your mother, right? Walk out in that, recognizing that your virtue is going to have these ripple effects.
Yeah.
Be virtuous, right? And for those that are Christians, be more like Christ.
Yeah.
That's the way we say that. So that's sort of my message to, like, if you want to call them the lay citizenry, those who are not formally involved in politics and fighting for policy. Like, these are the things that you can do. These are the understanding, like, and study up on the relations of Christianity and Islam.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the first foreign war we fought as a country was to stop having to pay jizya, which is like tribute to Muslims that they make you pay if you don't convert. Right. So, historically, the Sharia supremacists would come in and they would say, you got three options. You can convert to Islam, submit that way. You can pay jizya and prove your submission and maintain your religion to some degree, or we'll kill you.
Yeah.
And we chose basically to pay tribute after we won our independence from the UK, and all the European powers were doing this. And finally, Jefferson got tired of it. We built up a navy, and we went and fought the Barbary Wars. So we didn't have to pay tribute to these, Muslim pirates from Algiers and Tunisia and Morocco.
Yeah, I knew about that war. It never occurred to me that was our first foreign war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's fighting them.
Me either.
And we paid the sort of Muslim tax for not being Muslim for the first decade of our existence as a country, roughly.
Wow, right? Stuff I was not taught that. I don't remember being taught that. Wow.
So that's how it started. The West is called the West because it was the portion of the known world the Muslims hadn't conquered at the tip of a scimitar. And so also know your enemy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like these people who are coming and saying openly, we want to take over these, this city council or this school board or, this state house, right? Well, why? Is it because you want to assimilate and share our value? Do you stand up a statue of your Hindu monkey god that's taller than any other statue because you want to assimilate, or because you're declaring that you're going to take this ground and it's yours?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is an act of invasion and occupation. Right. This is ours now, right? And just having that understanding as average Americans who are living their lives, I think is really important, because I talk this way and people get very uncomfortable sometimes. And
not here.
And I just say, like, look, I am a devoted follower of Christ, and I want my children to have a country in which that is the bedrock of our sort of civic or order. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a blessing. I think it's the reason that America is a place where average people in greater numbers than anywhere else in the history of the world have been able to lead full and dignified lives.
Yeah.
So would you say some of the things that they can do locally, like in your city council or whatever, is, go to city council meetings, maybe run for city council, is that something a little bit more practical that they can do?
Sure. If you want to sort of connect it to the political process, I mean, even more baseline than that. So I was a precinct chair for the Republican Party, right?
Got it.
The Democratic Party, in my opinion, is lost. Like, if you want to launch 100%. A campaign to try and save it, like, the Lord bless and keep you. And if he's called you to that, I look forward to watching from afar. That is not what he's called me to do. Mm-hmm. But go and be a precinct chair for the Republican Party. What's a precinct chair? This is sort of the on the ground, boots on the ground. You're the person in your neighborhood that is designated by the party as a source of information, and both for the party and for your neighbors, right? So when election time comes, you canvass your neighborhood and you say, hey, these are the issues that our locality is facing, whether it's a school board race or a city council race or whatever. And if you were a person of faith and you see the Islamification and the radical Sharia supremacists that are coming in as something that's not good, right? Well, you go and talk with your neighbors about it. Encourage them, bring them to the polls, encourage them to the polls. I mean, that's a very practical way. There are all sorts of great organizations that exist for particular issues. If you don't want to get involved in sort of the rough and tumble of politics, and you think, well, I want to focus more on the Islamic issue in particular, groups that are dedicated to that, right? Raising awareness is good. Educating people are good. But at the end of the day, right, like, our problem isn't that we don't know the right things, it's that we don't do the right things.
I was going to say the same thing. We've had long conversations about the fact that we're not doing it because when we look out our front door, we don't see it.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time before we do, and that's when we'll act, and then it's going to be too late.
Well, they're not seeing it. It's because they're moving away from it. That's what a lot of our followers are saying, like, we'll shine a light on what's going on in Irving or Plano or Frisco or whatever, and then they'll be like, we got to move. Like, where do we move? And I'm like, stop moving and start doing. Yeah. Like, you've got to be able to stand up for the country you live in, or even the state you live in. You can't just sit here and move away from the problem.
Yeah, or else they do get uncomfortable, like you said, and they just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, how much fear should there be? Just in the sort of ambient fear among, the garden variety American middle class, people.
Yeah.
Once you make them aware that we are being invaded by a force that consciously wants to undermine everything that we know and love, in my opinion, how much fear should there be? If there's not going to be any action, maybe it should start with a little bit of fear. And I don't know if that's a healthy message to send or not, but
maybe the way I would say it is just the whatever the critical mass is, where there's sort of no recovery, right? The tipping point. We are dangerously close to that. I mean,
that's scary.
You know, I mean, think about like Sharia law, right? Like husbands can beat their wives. They can marry 4, have more concubines. You can marry minors.
Stone
you leave
people.
the faith under a Sharia supremacist regime, and they can kill you, right? It's a religious obligation to kill you. I mean, this is nothing could be more antithetical to the American experience because it's ultimately based on a Christian ethic, in my opinion. And you can tell people this is what's in store for us if we don't stand up and fight. But it does help to show them. It does help to show them. Sometimes Christians don't vote near the numbers we should, right? And I don't know what the mentality is. I don't know if it is a mentality is the problem necessarily, but sometimes the way I'll frame it is like, look, when the children of Israel, the southern kingdom, were taken captive by the Babylonians, they were taken to Babylon, which in the scriptures is like, it doesn't get any worse than Babylon. Babylon is like everything lecherous, everything insidious, everything terrible. This is Satan's city. And this is where the children of Israel are taken captive, right? And you can just imagine they're like, we can't touch anything because everything is defiled, right? We got to keep to ourselves. Jeremiah comes to them and he says, I have a word from the Lord for you, you captives that were just taken away from your homes. If you put yourself in their position, you're thinking, okay, we've screwed up. We wandered from the Lord. We will repent. We will live rightly. How long do we have to be here once we do that? Right? That's the question you're asking. Like, how long? And Jeremiah says to them, thus says the Lord who caused you to be taken away captive. Build houses. Plant gardens. Give your children away in marriage. Take their children in marriage. For in the peace of that city will you have peace. Right?
Yeah.
It is a occupy until I come. You're not going anywhere. That is the usual course that the Lord gives to. Sometimes you get an Abrahamic call. Leave your family, leave the land, go somewhere I'm going to show you. That's very unusual. He's the exception. Usually the Lord says, I have planted you in a place, and in the peace of that city will you have peace. Now, is that a guarantee that we're going to win? No, it's not, right? The Sharia supremacists might win.
Yeah.
The communists might win. But as Solzhenitsyn said, they're not going to win through me. Quite the opposite, right? So despair is a sin. We cannot despair. A healthy level of fear is good. We should have a healthy level of fear. The people that are winning office in Democratic nominations across the country, from everything from dog catcher to governor, are openly embracing things like nationalizing grocery stores.
And saw that.
Requiring a government card in order to be able to buy onions. I mean, what if the government all of a sudden doesn't like you?
Yeah.
Right? Then what are you going to do?
Then you'll,
Right? Like, and they'll play some game where they mark you, and the official reason why you're no longer allowed to buy groceries is not the actual reason. And everybody knows, hint, hint, wink, wink.
Sure.
And how are you going to fight it? Because you're going to go into some kangaroo court like Solzhenitsyn and all of the Russian dissidents in the Soviet era.
Yeah.
And the whole it is not, that is not the way. And we stand up forthrightly and we give people beautiful pictures of what the alternative is like, like
I love how you say beautiful pictures.
Yes, because that's what men die for, beautiful pictures. The most beautiful pictures in their minds, that's what they die for and sacrifice for. Right? It's not some argument, it's not some syllogism. It's not, my duty to my country. I mean, those are all good and noble things. But when a man says my duty to my country, he's got some image of George Washington kneeling in prayer beside his horse before he goes across the Delaware. Right? I mean, what did not to get the crass, but like, what did the GIs carry with them? What did they paint on the sides of their planes back when they were allowed to? Beautiful women.
Beautiful women. Absolutely.
You die for beautiful pictures. So give them beautiful pictures.
That's right.
And we have the best. I mean, is there anything more beautiful than a big family out for a walk in the evening at sunset?
No, that's
Is there
great.
anything more beautiful than that?
No.
And who has a monopoly on the policies and like official position that's going to lead to that? Well, Republicans.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
that's
where, like, offer it.
Yeah. I love it, man.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm going
good
to rewatch this episode with a pen and a piece of paper, man. I'm taking some notes, man. There's some good T-shirt ideas coming out of this episode.
When you said beautiful picture, I thought you were being facetious. I thought you were being sarcastic. Like, we need to paint them the real picture of what will happen if Islam takes over. Like, you need to hear and see this picture. And I'm like, no, actually, he was talking about beautiful
picture. Yeah, it reminded me of, if we're going off on a side tangent, one of my favorite movies, Saving Private Ryan, where Captain Miller was talking about what's most important to him. And it was his wife in her rose bushes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a beautiful picture.
Yes.
That's why he was fighting.
Yes.
And that's, why he wanted to
man. Okay.
live.
Thank you for being on, but I got some questions to ask you.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Nick.
Before I ask the litmus test questions, can you give maybe a 2-minute statement or explanation of what you're going to do when you get in Congress? Like, I asked you what we could do. Now, what are you going to do? 2 minutes.
On the Sharia specifically?
Sure. Let's
focus on Sharia.
Let's focus on that.
All right. So I will join day one, the Sharia Free American Caucus. Congressman Keith Self started that. And then, so legislation we have fought the Democrats to a basic draw, right? Okay. You're not going to move serious legislation, in my opinion, that is on very controversial things like this. One of the best uses of a congressional seat, in addition to moving legislation, which you should try to do, recognizing the odds, is the subpoena power. It's oversight. It's exposure, right? It's drawing attention to certain things. So the things I will be doing, drawing attention to, the conversations I'll be having, the sorts of committees that I'll seek out are those that can be used to expose the invasion, the takeover, and to drive the conversation toward a recognition of where we are and what's at stake. And I think that will be one of my biggest contributions.
Good.
Now, a piece of that is public presence and public statements. And I mean that. But I also mean, there are some things we can actually do, some things that we can expose, some people, organizations, networks we can expose, whether it's fraud or other things, just to say, this is what's happening and this is what this group of people is doing to us already.
Mm-hmm. Good. I like it. And you're good at doing that in a very short time. Yeah, that was very decisive. Very succinct. That's the word, succinct. All right, I'm going to roll into our litmus test. This is our litmus test to determine if you are conservative or liberal.
Oh, here we go.
And believe me, I think you're going to pass this with flying colors.
Yeah, these are easy. We need to come up with some harder questions, bro.
Well, I've got one tonight that I haven't told you about.
Oh,
and I'm gonna see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
It's where was Barack Obama really born?
Write it down, dude.
Well, we may have to get that one on there. Okay, when does life start?
Life starts at conception.
Boom, we're rolling now. How many genders are there?
There are 2 genders, man and woman.
And what is a woman?
A woman is a beautiful thing, the last thing the Lord created on the 6th day.
Gosh, I love that question because it never gets the same answer, but they're all the same answer. You guys.
I can give you the clinical definition, but it somehow doesn't seem fitting.
No, that was great. I love that answer.
The last thing God created on the 6th day.
The crown of creation.
Wow.
The crown of creation. That's awesome. Okay, so this one is one of our newest ones, but it's not the newest one that I haven't introduced yet. Was the 2020 election stolen?
The short answer is yes. And look at the Hunter Biden laptop suppression. New York Post, one of the oldest publications in the country, and they're not allowed to give the American people actual factual evidence on what is arguably a very key piece of information about the election. And there were all kinds of things that happened, outside the parameters of that, right? So, states unilaterally deciding we're just not going to abide by our election laws, right, for various reasons.
Yeah.
And so, the sort of response of, well, show me the number of votes that would have flipped an election, this or that. I'm like, that's not really the point. Like, you're missing the point. Like, obviously, there are forces at work, nefarious forces that were not playing by the rules.
Yeah.
Which is what we mean, right? And so, I mean, I make an argument that the right is so fixated on playing by the rules.
Yep.
And it's a useless exercise.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the world we live in anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Now, we don't do immoral things as Christians.
Right.
There are certain things that are inherently immoral. We cannot do them, no matter what.
Right.
Yep.
We don't make means ends arguments. Let us do evil that good may come. Nope. We don't do that. But if it's within the realm of possibility, if it's within the realm of my prudence, I'm going to find the surest path to get the most conservative policy passed and instantiated and made solid that I can. I'm going to use every means that I can, legitimate political means that I can to do it.
Nice.
See, I'm telling you, man. Pen and piece of paper.
I know, right?
Writing stuff down.
Last question. This is the newest one. Let me get through the question before I hear any gasp. Nick. Anthony Fauci. Criminal or hero?
I mean, I don't feel like
He doesn't want to say
Anthony Fauci is a coward. He's a narcissist. I was flabbergasted by the sort of like the tongue bath he was giving himself in his diaries.
I know, right?
You're just like, dude, like you clearly like did not get enough swirlies in junior high. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, that's just putting it mildly, right? Like it really is shocking the like just the ego.
Oh, it was
on the guy.
It was clearly
right?
shocking.
And I mean, you know, how do you? I don't know. How do you look yourself in the mirror when like that's your perspective, right? Talking about how great it is to be in the headlines and like, and oh, by the way, we can't publish the actual mortality rates because then nobody will get this vaccine. That's my ticket to being famous and on the cover of Time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? Like, dude, like, forgive me, but like, screw you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, thanks be to God, vengeance is His, and all that'll be worked out. And we can pray for Anthony Fauci's soul, and like, there's gonna be a lot of purging that happens for that guy to be made right. Because man, what a, you know, Aquinas, he refers to this like the sinful man as cravatus in se, caved in on himself. All right, that's like the definition of sin, like craven. We kind of think like
that is a great description of what Fauci is right now.
And I mean, it just like, and everything is just, and how boring too.
Yeah.
When your whole life is just like, I just want to see myself reflected back at me, like my image.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so boring, you know. I don't know. I don't even, you know.
Well, you didn't answer the question.
Criminal. Oh,
okay.
yeah. And if I had prosecutorial authority, I would absolutely go after him. I think Mays Middleton is going to. Our new
Is he really?
General. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, sweet. Because I heard that
I'm
Ron
here for
DeSantis
it.
is going to do it.
I'm here for it. I'm like, bro,
Sweet.
let me know I can help.
That's fabulous.
So just clarify that for us real quick. So he has a federal pardon, but the states can still go after him.
Yeah, so the federal pardon does not cover a couple things. One is it doesn't cover state crimes, and it doesn't cover post-pardon crimes like obstruction of justice.
Really?
Correct. Yeah, your pardon doesn't stretch into the future.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
I thought a pardon was a kind of a blanket.
Not moving forward.
Interesting. Okay.
Because Joe Biden doesn't have that power anymore.
I don't think he ever had the power in the first place.
Well, he never exercised it of his own volition.
That's very true. Awesome, Jace. Thank you so much, bro.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
This was fun.
Thank you very much.
This was fun.
I really appreciate you.
We're just gonna pray it out and end it from there. Lord Jesus, thank you for this time. Thank you for this awesome conversation. I do ask that you would bless and anoint Jace as he goes forward. Give him favor in his election, and give him favor and wisdom as he goes forward to lead us in the 32nd District. And thank you for the Lord, I just want to thank you for the trials that you brought him through and the wisdom that you've given him through these trials. Bless his family, bless his kids. And thank you, Lord, for this ability to speak freely. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks, guys.